Hello there, I'm Ian Dyson. I'm the Commissioner of the City of London Police, and as well as that I have national policing responsibilities for economic crime, which increasingly takes us into the world of cybercrime, but also I'm the National Police Lead on business crime and also the National Police Lead on information technology. So I'm speaking to you today with a number of different aspects of policing that I want to share my thoughts with you. So if I think about policing and going back into history, policing started as purely an organisation to police the public space. And indeed, that expanded at a time when there was no private security industry. So for example, when the Natural History Museum opened in Victorian London in the 1860s, the Metropolitan Police had a whole army of people who were employed just to police the Natural History Museum. Nowadays, we're used to museums, art galleries and the like having their own security. And I think that reflects the way that society has moved, and the ability of police to deliver across all of those responsibilities has also changed. So when I started as a young constable, you would police inside of football matches and big sporting events. That no longer happens. So the world is changing, and we're now in a world that is changing even quicker as cyber and increasingly our willingness and in fact eagerness to do more and more of our business online, to engage in our social life online, means that policing has to be more engaged in the world outside of the public space. And we can't do that alone. We need that partnership with industry in order to do that. So we're all used to those relationships and partnerships that mean police officers work side by side with private security guards, the uniformed guards that you will see at the entrance to big institutions, the museums that I talked about, or indeed the offices of private companies. That is something that has existed for a number of years. What we're now working with the industry to do is look at how we can take that further. Can we actually use private security guards to be deployed at the scene of a major incident, for example? But also we know that private security is doing other work, such as guarding of scenes of crime on behalf of policing, because we are being stretched in our mission. And then if you take the world of online crime, how do we actually engage with the private security industry to make online world safer for everyone? And you will see that in the number of private firms that offer a very specialist cyber offering. And that is something that we work very closely with them around, for example, child sexual exploitation online, working cheek by jowl with this private security industry. So what does the police service offer for young people who might be interested in security as a career? Well, I think from the days when most police officers were wearing a uniform and patrolling the streets at night or during the day, dealing with the incidents that come up, we still need police officers to do that, and we still recruit a lot of people to do that. But increasingly we need far more specialist skills. We need people to be able to operate online. We need people who understand how fraud and financial crime works. We need people who understand how the social media networks work. And we want those people to be working with us in the industry and in the police service. So we're looking as a police service at ways in which we can recruit in a more flexible way, so that people will join us for just a few years and then they will move on and do work in other industries as well. And what a great thing to have on your CV, that for a number of years you worked with, for example, the City of London Police, tackling online crime or dealing with some of those really complex frauds. Those are the sort of opportunities that we now offer to people who are thinking about security as a career. And security is fundamental to the safety and the prosperity of all of us. So if you think about those places around the world where there isn't security, where there isn't an effective policing mechanism, those are the worlds where businesses struggle to flourish. So it is important that if you're thinking about this as a career, that you think about how fundamental this is to a democratic society and to a society that is enabled to flourish and to prosper in the modern world.
My name is Michael Barley. I'm the Senior Security Advisor at Sky. I'm also the Chairman of FACT, the Federation Against Copyright Theft, and Master of the Worshipful Company of Security Professionals, a livery company within the City of London. The main challenges any head of security should expect going forward, and I think in its widest context, people should be looking at things like the shift of global economies. Currently, the centre of power is within sort of the Atlantic areas, but come 2050, China and India will have bigger economies than the West, and people should be sort of thinking ahead about those sorts of issues. Should also be considering whether climate change will become a security threat. 10 years ago, it wasn't. Today, it's very high on the agenda, and I think heads of security need to consider these sorts of things as potential threats for the future. Security roles in the future need to be more encompassing within the businesses in which they operate. They need to be very integrated within the structure and the hierarchy of the business within which they work, so that they can be more aware of where the business is going, what direction of travel it's taking, so that they can consider the threats that are coming towards that business. For an organisation to have resilience, I believe it has to have a network of connected intelligence. And I think this is fundamental going forward. In order for a business to maintain itself and to withstand any crisis, any issue that may affect its normal BAU status, connected intelligence network underlines the need to have that resilience and inform the business of any potential threats through that connected intelligence network.
I'm Kieron Sharp. I'm the Chief Executive of the Federation Against Copyright Theft, known everywhere as FACT. I think the main challenges that we can expect now are the continual changes and advances in technology, which causes problems for organisations staying on top of those changes and allows weaknesses and access to those who might wish to attack you. I think as well that you then have connectivity to other organisations and countries where their regimes may not be as robust as yours, and that also provides access for security weaknesses. There are political protests and other forms of protest groups that may attack your product or your business, and I think as well we will always have the problem of the rogue employees and what we should and could be doing about those as a continual security process. I think in the future security needs to be part of the mainstream of any business, and it needs to be looked at the very, very top level. And there needs to be an investment in security at that level, which isn't always apparent at the moment. My reasoning being is that if you take a proactive approach, you can look at what the threats are, you can understand what your problems are, and you can make decisions based on that. But you can't do that if you don't invest in security. I think an organisation can be resilient if it has looked very, very closely at what the security threats are. And you can only really do that if you employ top-level security professionals who know and understand what they're doing, can give the company that comfort, knowing that what they're putting forward is going to protect the company in all arenas. There's also very much in the situation related to FACT, a better understanding, a better need for an integration and better relationship with government, so that public-private sector partnership which can create extra resilience for any organisation.
My name's Lucy and I'm an intelligence analyst at FACT. I previously worked in the public sector as an intelligence analyst for the police. I'd just completed a degree in history and I really enjoyed the analytical work involved with this. So this was collecting and collating the information and then coming up with useful statistics and inferences from the results. And I wanted to find a role where I could develop these skills. So my role in the public sector in the police enabled me to enhance my analytical skills. I was able to review and solve crime series and then also develop my report writing skills. On a regular basis I'd be writing tactical assessments and strategic assessments. I really enjoyed this role, it was interesting, and I felt like I was giving something back to the community as well, because we were doing something that was worthwhile in solving crimes. I now work as an intel analyst in the private sector within the security industry. The police gave me a good grounding in terms of intelligence analysis and intelligence-led approach to analysis. But working in the private sector, it's now meant that I have more freedom in my approach to my analysis. We have a lot more variety in the type of clients we represent, and each of them have got different needs. And as such, it's more varied, so I can be working on short-term options, tactical options for them, or more longer-term investigations where I'm targeting organised crime groups. And it's all to do with intelligence-led thinking and making informed decisions for the clients, which I like. I suppose one of the best things about working in this sector is the fact that every investigation is different. So, as I said, the clients have got different needs, and you can be targeting huge organised crime groups. And one of the most rewarding elements, I think, is even after you've deterred the criminal, you're then collating lots of data on them, be it forensics or financial data, and you're working with different people within the industry to try and piece together how they were conducting this criminality. I feel like I can develop myself more in terms of an analyst by looking at the investigative opportunities available and also broadening my skills in regard to financial analysis. These are the areas that I'm most interested in. Already I've developed my skills in being able to manage the data that's available for clients. So for each client I create and manage bespoke intelligence databases, which just allows us more freedom to deal with the client in terms of what they require and what they want us to analyse. In terms of training that's been offered to me, I've completed various courses. I've completed a work-based intelligence analysis MVQ, and also completed all the core programs that cover the key principles of intelligence analysis. And coupled with this, I've done various courses which allow you to complete analysis. So this is dealing with databases that help you query the data, but also other software such as mapping and charting, which enable you to visualise the data and present it to end users. Being a small company, there's also been quite a lot of self-taught training. Within a company like this, you're required to be multi-skilled, and as such I've managed to develop myself by being in different units. So I'll spend time with forensic examiners and the internet investigators, and I found this quite rewarding because it helps you to realise what analysis opportunities there are, and it's also piqued my interest in certain other areas where I know that I can do more analysis.
My name is David Clark. I'm Head of Security for the Francis Crick Institute. I've been a client and candidate of SSR Personnel for the last 25 years, and they've always served me very well. I think the main challenges we're going to see in the coming years are going to be roundly technological based, with the advent of AI, smart buildings, Internet of Things, the wonderful connectivity that these give us, the wonderful benefits that are made to our organisations through these technologies, also create a considerable amount of vulnerabilities. So I think we're going to see increased challenges from those that wish to cause an organisation harm or put an organisation under pressure, utilising some of the vulnerabilities that are created through the use of technology. I think security roles in the future are going to be very much on a converged basis. I think the days of the physical security specialist and even the cyber security specialist are going to be limited. I think these roles will converge into one chief risk or chief resilience officer that's responsible for protection of the organisation, be that from a cyber attack or a physical attack. I think resilience in an organisation is pretty much defined by the ability to bounce back as quickly as possible following an incident, to be able to get that organisation back to normal very quickly, no matter what type of incidents happen to that organisation.
So my name's Jamal Herron. I'm a risk professional in the cyber and security, general security technology landscape. Where did I come from? I began my career in the military, in the Royal Air Force, where I spent 21 years. And during that time, 10 years in the ranks and 11 years commissioned, I dealt with all facets of security, physical, cyber, but predominantly in an aviation landscape. And with that, I accumulated a significant amount of knowledge, but also qualifications, especially within the cyber world. When I retired from the Air Force after those 21 years, in readiness to move into industry, I undertook a Master's in Security and Risk Management, and that really started my career from a commercial perspective. I was very fortunate when I left the military to land initially a job with a small boutique security consultancy company that was working with many FTSE 100 organisations cross-industry, advising them on matters of security awareness and risk awareness. And very soon, having been with that company for approximately about 14 months, I joined my first company, my first proper company as I call it, called Colt Technology Services. When I joined Colt as the Chief Security Officer initially. Colt Technology Services is an organisation which began as City of London Telecoms, but really moved forward very quickly into the data centre network, voice and cloud space. So for myself, coming from 21 years in the military, very quickly I had to learn an awful lot about areas of technology, risk and cyber that I really hadn't come across during my years in the military. I spent 8.5 years at Colt, and during that time I went through many different changes of job, looking not only at the physical security environment, looking at the vendor space, but also looking very closely at our security operations centre and the threat environment which was building around the Colt landscape, particularly in the field of telecommunications. Near my end of my tenure at Colt, I was very fortunate to be in a position where I was not only running all aspects of security, but also business continuity, health and safety, audit, and effectively became the Chief Risk Advisor to the CFO and the CEO. During my time at Colt, there was a requirement to look at the security framework, looking at how we assess the risk appetite of the organisation against investments. And there was a wonderful period where, with my team and the rest of the business, we reviewed what was the enterprise risk management system. Near the end of my time in Colt, I was very fortunate to be approached by Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank at that time were coming to terms with 3 lines of defence, a regulatory requirement, and trying to articulate what they needed to implement in order to meet their information technology risk requirements across the organisation. When I moved into Deutsche Bank, it was a case of looking across a very, very complex landscape of not only technology but process and wide dispersed business to define and work very, very closely with the entirety of the business on the implementation of a suitable information technology risk model. During my tenure at Deutsche Bank, it was also incumbent upon not only myself but the teams to look beyond technology risk, but through the cyber lens, through the data lens, records management, business continuity, operational resilience landscape, to make sure that what we were doing within the organisation, not only in terms of remediation, but also transformation and optimisation of our systems, not only met the needs of the customers and our shareholders, but also the exacting demands of the global Tier 1 regulatory community. The security of today is hugely complex in comparison to my early career in security. It's becoming much more intense. The sophistication of the attacks is far more clinical, and the landscape for those perpetrators is growing incredibly. When you look at cyber hasn't changed, and what it is we're dealing with in cyber hasn't really changed. But again, to reinforce, the landscape is changing dramatically. If you look at aspects of emerging technology, big data, data analytics, Internet of Things, that gives the cyber attacker a far wider field in order to take their attack. The interesting thing is that 99% of the cyber vulnerabilities within most organisations is already known, and not only just known in the last couple of weeks, but probably known for a prolonged period of time. And it comes back to those organisations who know these things, be it in the security space or the technology space, is what it is they're doing about it. And that comes back to the organisation's maturity in being able to articulate its risk appetite against investment to fix, or its tolerance levels against the impact of one of these vulnerabilities exposing themselves and ultimately harming the organisation.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who's taken part in this programme. We set out with the idea of trying to show you the diversity of the security sector. We hope we've shown you the diversity and that you, wherever you may be, now consider the security profession to be something you'd like to join. Thank you very much.